My idea for this presentation is basically to give some, provide you with some experiences as a researcher working with a data lab at the National Library, the Swedish National Library's own data lab, which has recently been established since last year. And as a way to provide you guys with some insights on what to think about when creating corpora for researchers at the National Libraries in Balticum, and also the potentially conflicting dimensions that could occur between research projects on the one hand and the agendas of the National Libraries on the other. And my experiences here draws on my participation in this research project, the Welfare State Analytics, which is a large-scale text analysis project that started last year in Sweden, funded by the Swedish Research Council, and that aims to study and explore the post-war period of the Swedish society and the culture from 1945 to 1989, exploring three massive data sets connected to politics that consists of the Swedish parliamentary records, then the sphere of media that consists, in our case, of a few already digitized newspapers, and then the sphere of culture, which we in our project which in our project is represented by the novels that we will digitize as a part of the project, and then use different probabilistic models to investigate discourses and themes that occurs and disappears in this period that previous researchers have had limited possibilities to do at this scale. So this is kind of how it looks. The KBLab lab was established last year as a supportive infrastructure for researchers in Sweden that wants to work with mostly large-scale dataset protected by the copyright law. So this is kind of a way for the national libraries to give access to researchers the material, novels, and newspapers, and audiovisual material and whatnot, that can't escape the doors of the National Library institution, and thus has to be kept inside. So the library created this data lab, which is something that other countries have done as well previously. And the lab is currently setting up its infrastructure, both in terms of different pipelines for curating data, and also to set up a structure of different models, OCR engines, posts, and NER tagging that will be accessible for researchers to use at the lab and run on various material, and to some extent also take the material outside the institution if it is possible to not construct the original of the text or the material. And the financial structure of the lab is based on or financed by the National Library in Sweden, and currently about 4 to 5 people are employed there, mostly or only, I would say, I think, people with more or less high technical competence to set up this kind of models and the infrastructure. And then, of course, researchers, like in our project, can apply for research projects that also has the lab as a partner, and also use some of the project money to pay the staff at the National Library to do different things specified by the project needs and demands. So currently the lab is trying to establish itself as a research infrastructure, and I'm sure it will take some time. And my project, or Pelesnika's project, which I am in, which is based in Umeå at Umeå University, where Humlab, where I am employed, is part. So it's our project and a few other that are the first to work with the lab. And so far, some challenges have been detected working with the lab, at least from our perspective. And our research project is it's a humanities project with a few people from the natural sciences, one statistician and one data scientist that are partly employed by the project, but mostly we are a few humanists interested in this period and in this material, but not capable of doing the model doing the modeling ourselves. And one of the challenges is the so-called institutional structure of the KBLab, as it is part of the National Library of Sweden, a very old institution that do not always work in the same pace or with the same goals and agenda as us researchers. So, for example, to re-OCR a particular material can take very long time, and it's no problem for a library institution that has a longer perspective than let's say 3 or 4 years, but it's usually the length of a research project. So that kind of challenge is often pops up when our research project needs something to be done at the lab that we ourselves cannot do. So that's something that is important to have in mind. Also, the copyright protected material, of course, have to be analyzed or at least modeled at the lab, since it can't leave the institution. And this is not necessarily a problem, except that you have to go to the National Library yourself and sit there perhaps for a couple of days, and often something goes wrong after a topic model or whatnot have been run, and then you have to go back to do the same process all over again. But there are also ways to handle this kind of copyright issues, at least when you're working with some kind of methods like bag of words methods, such as topic modeling, where you can where the order of, for example, a newspaper article doesn't really matter. So you can, as we did in a previous case study, we was able to access the research, the newspaper material, and have it in Umeå, because we every article, every text block, the order of the words were changed to alphabetical order instead of the semantic order. So there was no it was very difficult to understand what the text was about, so to say. And then we could perform the topic models in Umeå, and then I'll also actually trace the topics to the text blocks, and it was quite possible actually to find out which text blocks that was connected to which newspaper article, because most of the if you combine, like if you searched for a couple of words that contained a text block, it was quite easy to narrow down in the search engine from the National Library which newspaper and which newspaper article that this text block was connected to, which of course makes it possible to work with the material in that sense. However, if you are going to let's say do some more classical collocate analysis, it is the order of the words are of course essential. So that kind of methods have to be employed at the KBLab. Oh, sorry, KBLab, not KBLab. That sounded a bit strange. So that's so the copyright protected material is of course an issue, but something that can be handled. But a more difficult challenge to handle was our dependency on the developers. So in our project, we first hired like if a 50% person at the lab to work for us doing specific tasks, but that person was foremost employed by the KBLab, and therefore not really engaged in our project and in our project's specific needs and demands and so on. So after a while, we actually just decided to take away that 50% and then hire a data scientist that was sit physically at the lab and work for us, because that's also an option. But you don't have to pay the lab, but you can have people to sit there and perform the analysis for you within the project. But still, that was also something that was very quickly discovered, that the KBLab and us researchers, we have different ideas and agendas, what is important, and also when things has to be done. and sometimes things has to be done quickly, and then it is difficult to work with an institution that has a different time perspective on things. So this is some brief lessons learned from working with the KBLab in Stockholm, in Sweden. But things, of course, no surprise, takes a lot of time, and problems will always occur. and problems will occur if you I mean, problems will occur if you hire someone at the lab to work for you, or you have a data scientist in your project that sit at the lab and work for you. Problems will always occur, but and things will take time. And that also leads to the third point, that as a researcher in the project, you have to make sure that you have enough technical resources in the project to work for you, and so you will not be dependent on the staff at the National Library lab, since there are possibilities for frictions to occur in terms of these different workflows and so on. And also that you always have to choose your material carefully, and also sometimes very pragmatically, regarding which material that you can work with outside the institution, and also which kind of methods that are possible to employ. So, for example, when we work with the newspaper data, we could work with the material ourselves using topic modeling, because then our text blocks were all bag of words. And now we are working with the parliamentary data, which is of course publicly free, and therefore also more easy for us to work with and not be dependent on a physical lab in Stockholm, which is also very convenient. And that you have to, if you're going to perform specific methods or models on a copyright protected material, it is important that you have a very clear idea of what you want to do, because otherwise you have to you have to make sure that you could be physically at the lab for a very long time. So this kind of free lessons learned from working with the National Library lab in Sweden. And I guess this, to some extent at least, relates to the topic of this workshop regarding creating corpora for the national libraries and so on. Yeah. Thank you.